Hi guys, it's Beth, and I am back today with some Halloween cards that I made using my fall and Halloween stack from Die Cuts with a View, the current Kilopad project that I am working on. And I managed to make 135 Halloween cards from the Halloween patterned paper. And I realized when I started all of this, I don't have many Halloween stamps at all. I have this set that I've had for a long time, and I've lost the packaging to it somewhere on my scrap desk. But I mean, it's the one that I've used, the only one that I've had, so it's gotten a lot of use over the years when I make Halloween cards. And then in the past year, I got this Newton's Nook Happy Meowween set. I think it was when one of the last fall's flavor of the month card kits. So I used those, and I had a bunch of little black cardstock die cuts that I had made last fall for some reason, I guess using up some scraps. And then there were a few random die cuts, or not die cuts, rub-ons that I had in my stash that I was able to use up. But I didn't even really have any like sticker type embellishments that match the colors of orange in this pad. So I used my silhouette a lot for these cards. But first we'll start with, these are the monster cards that I made with my daughters earlier this summer. We did it on a video, and it had just this hairy paper, so it kind of screamed monster to me. So we added some fun googly eyes and teeth. And then at the end, when I was going through all the scraps, I had some strips of that paper left, so I just kind of pieced them together to make another monster. And then this one I just used squares and some more googly eyes. And then spooky, this is a sentiment from my silhouette. So a good portion of my cards was these monsters and then the mummies that we also made that day, because I got at least 20 of each of these cards, so that was a good chunk of them. But these mummies, we just made it. There was this pattern paper that had looked like torn fabric strips that were layered together. So we turned those into mummies. And then again at the end, I had some strips of that paper left, so I pieced them together to make a couple more. That was a fun project. My girls had fun with those. And then also in the pack, there was this white marbly paper, and I didn't really know what else to do with it other than ghosts. So I cut a whole bunch of different, I had 3 pieces of that paper. And so I cut a whole bunch of different sizes of ghosts, and then I even cut some like skeleton heads out of them as well. But I had these black cards, they're like pre-made black cards with an envelope that I found at Michael's on clearance several years ago. It was like 8 or 10 cards in a pack for 50 cents. So I snagged up a bunch of those, and then I think I finally used them all up with this project. But I just took my bigger ghosts, layered them on, and then anchored them with some black and off-white pattern paper here at the bottom. And then I stamped Boo on pattern paper and just added that sentiment. And then here I switched to this gray, kind of black and gray striped paper, and then a blue Boo. And then down here, these little starlight things, whenever I'm cutting vinyl, it seems like I always have like this little 1-inch, 2-inch square of vinyl that's not being used, like it's in a corner somewhere. And I used to just cut that out and save it to use for future projects, but I found I forget about it, or it's too small to use for whatever I want it for. So now I've started that I just, whatever space is left on my sheet of vinyl or my piece of vinyl, if I'm not using it, I just fill it with something, just so I have it, that something cut. I'm more likely to use it that way than I am to go back and cut up the scraps later. So what I usually default to are little circles, various sizes of circles that I can use in place of enamel dots. And this is actually what is in between the circles. And I just thought it kind of gave that, I don't know, like that magical ghost kind of sparkle. So I just put that down there just to give the bottom a little bit of something. And there's several of those. And then this is the next size. I had two other like medium-sized ghosts that I used, and then I just have them coming out of like this boo box, this sentiment here in the middle. And then at the bottom, I just anchored it with some black and that bluish purple pattern or paper with strips. And then here's those ghosts again. This time I just have an orange pattern paper strip and boo. And I actually popped that one up on some foam. And then this was the smallest size of the ghosts, and so I just kind of put them together on one card with a little boo that I fussy cut on a black strip at the bottom. And then on these I used, it's My Favorite Things sketch 114, and then I just flip-flopped it because I had some of these Boo to You sentiments that I had printed for my silhouette, and they were oriented to the left side, and so I just kind of flip-flopped the sketch so that I could use my sentiment on this side, and then I added the ghost up here. So got a bunch of those. So I got to use up a lot of those ghosts that I cut. And then if you watched a previous video where I was talking about those full sheet images that were in the pack, there was this one image of the tree with kind of a dusk skyline behind it, and I wasn't really sure how to use it. So I finally just decided to cut it up and do card mats with it. And then I had some black bats that I had, again, die cut last fall, and so I decided to use those up kind of as flying up among the trees. And then just I stamped Happy Hauntings down there at the bottom. So I did that for a bunch of them. And then some of them I used my silhouette and printed out this A Haunting We Will Go. And this purple and the go ties in with some of this. It was what was left over from this paper when I cut it up. So I just matted it with that blue and then with some of that gray and black striped. Getting a few of those. And then this is kind of the other side of that paper. You can see like the sun is setting. And then I also did a No Tricks, Just Treats. Printed that from my silhouette as well. Like I said, my silhouette got a workout with this project. Here I used Freshly Made Sketches 173, and all of these card mats are actually pieced together because they were like just shy of 4 inches or like 3.5 inches. And so I realized I also had a bunch of thin strips of other patterned paper, so I decided to piece them together with a thin black piece of cardstock, just to make them the width for my card mat. And so on this one, I just used, it's the spider and web from my Newton's Nook stamp set, and then this Frightfully Delightful is one of the rub-ons that I had. Here again is that No Tricks, Just Treats sentiment, and then I added, since this was my sentiment up here, I just added some vinyl dots on patterned paper. And then here, this was a spider that I had die cut, and then Scary is one of the rub-on sentiments that I had. And then this, what looks like netting behind it, is actually, it's like a sticky netting. And I remember it was a trend, gosh, years ago. I can't even tell you how many years ago, but I like had just a few strips left. Then I ran across in my stash. And so I decided to go ahead and use that up. Because I felt it tied in with this one just because it kind of looked like a spider web. And the funny thing is I actually have a whole roll of this in black that somebody had given me. And I want to say that its original use is like PVC, something to do with PVC piping, like I don't know, or it also kind of reminds me of when you drywall, you put this like a sticky webbing over it and then I don't know. But it was a trend a long time ago, and I still have it. So blast from the past. supply there. And then on these, I just took, stamped a jack-o'-lantern in orange and then fussy cut it out. And used Happy Halloween stamped sentiment there. This one is Sweet Sunday Sketch 264. And I did, again, that web and spider, and then the eek are from that Newton's Nook stamp set. And then these are just black cardstock circles that I cut using your standard hole punch. This one is Stamplorations Challenge Sketch number 4, and I actually took it and turned it sideways, like oriented it sideways. These were some of those skeletons that I cut from that marbly paper, and so I just layer those on some black cardstock circles. And then the spooky sentiment is one that I printed from my silhouette. And then this one is SC355. And this is another piece of vinyl, so it's something that I had cut out of a little, what was going to be a little scrap of vinyl that I had gone ahead and cut out when I was doing another project. And so I just, with the scraps that I had left, I just kind of tried to piece this one together. And then again, this is spooky sentiment from my silhouette. This is one of my favorite sketches, so I tend to use it in a lot of my Kilopad projects. But it's Operation Right Home sketch number 154. And so here, like I just used, there's different variations because it's whatever scraps I had that I could get cut into squares. So in this case, I had some black cats and spiders from the black cardstock die cuts that I had left from last year, and then Happy Hauntings was stamped. This one, I combined some of the black die cuts with some of those white marble die cuts, and then the spooky from my silhouette, and then I added some brads from my stash. And then on this one, it's I stamped a black cat from one of my, that stamp set that I'd had for a while, and then the pumpkin is from that Newton's Nook stamp set, and I stamped it on white, and then I stamped it again on pattern paper, and then fussy cut just the pumpkin part out to layer it on my white cardstock, and then fussy cut everything out, and then I also colored in the stem. So I got a bunch of those. And then the Happy Meowween is from that Newton's Nook stamp set as well. This sketch is My Favorite Things, number 265. And this one, I just kind of used whatever strips or squares that I could find. And then my focal point image was, again, this jack-o'-lantern that I stamped and then fussy cut out. Up here, I added a few of my vinyl dots, and then just a simple Happy Halloween sentiment down here. This one is that Newton's Nook spider and web, and then these are just paper circles. And this one is actually, I did a little shaker card using that No Tricks Just Treat sentiment from my silhouette, and then filled the shaker with, I had one bat left over, so I filled it with that, and then just white, orange, and black. I'm sorry about the glare. White, orange, and black sequence. And then this circle down here is just black cardstock that was embossed with some stripes. And this one is the Sweetshop sketch number 117. And I used that Newton's Nook cat and colored it in with my Copics, and then came back and then added the jack-o'-lantern face. It has like two different faces, so I added that once it had dried. And then once I like put the image and the sentiment down here, I just kind of felt it needed a little bit something more, so I just did some black and white twine, and then came in down here with some of my vinyl dots. So I got a bunch of those. This pile is a combination of two sketches. It's Reverse Confetti number 10 and Freshly Made Sketches 83. And it was just whatever strips I could find. I didn't cut anything down like width-wise. I just cut lengthwise to fit it on the card. So this is truly just whatever strips that I had, wider strips that I had left. So again, there's that web and spider. This time I did the web in purple and the eek. This one I just used the Happy Hauntings stamp, several of those. And this one, once I put the strips and the square on, since I didn't mat it with anything, like I didn't love the way it was against the papers, the different oranges, so I was trying to anchor it down just a little bit with the black strips here. So it's best to mat, but I was just trying to work quickly, use up the paper. This one was fun. This is My Favorite Things sketch number 395. And on this one, I did my pattern paper circle, matted on a black cardstock circle, and then a real thin strip with Spooktacular stamped on it. And then I stamped that Newton's Nook pumpkin again, fussy, cut it out, colored it in, and then stamped the jack-o'-lantern face on it. And here again is some of my vinyl dots. This one I was able to use up 2 of the rub-ons that I had. The skulls was one rub-on, and then the Happy Hunting to You was a separate rub-on. So I think this one turned out pretty cool. I like the way the orange and blacks coordinate with my paper. And then just to give us something to here at the bottom, I cut out some black skulls from my silhouette on some black cardstock and backed it with some white to fill in for the eyes. This one, I don't have a printed sketch, but I know I've seen it somewhere before. It may have been on a Christy Marcotte, one of her Kilopad, 6x6 Kilopad tutorials. But it's just, you take your basic mat, and then I took a strip of, this time, instead of pattern paper, I used some black cardstock that was already embossed with circles or dots. So I just had it go diagonally across the card front, and then I added another sentiment from my silhouette. It says Pumpkin Sweet Spooks and Treats, and matted in on black. And then these are like little plastic dots that I had in my stash. I think I made them a long time ago, but this was also fun. I have 2 of these Patchwork star cards, and I used this die. I don't know who the manufacturer is. I got it off of Amazon, and it took forever to get here. It says it's made in China, and I think that's where it came directly from. But it was only a few dollars, so I wasn't sure how well it would work, but it worked pretty well. So I cut it out twice in white just so I could get my frame, and then I cut it out once in black cardstock and then once out of this orange and black patterned paper so that I could kind of do mix and match and do the outside in one and then the inside of the star in the other. So that was fun. It's the first time I've gotten to use that, and I had fun playing with that one. I had made some treat bags out of this candy corn patterned paper, and I had, again, they weren't quite wide enough to fill a card, so like I did on those other ones, I kind of pieced it together with some other patterned paper to make my card front, and then just didn't really follow a sketch, just did a simple layout with this pumpkin wishes and candy corn kisses that I made and printed from my silhouette. And I felt it needed something else, so I've used Christy Marcotte's method, putting a little fishtail banner up at the top just to add a little something. And I did it in white so that it would stand out, but then it was too white, so I added some little orange thin strips of pattern paper to help anchor that down. Then I was getting down to all of my little scraps, and this is the pattern that I kind of use on every pad kill, where I just find strips that are the same width and I can cut them down to the same length and then just mat them on black, or mat them on a solid color of cardstock, and then that kind of becomes the focal point of the card. In this case, I had 2 little strips of black, so I fishtailed those and then pieced them together to make it look like it was going all the way across behind my strips piece here, and then just put a big Happy Halloween circle in the middle. This one, again, I did that diagonal strip going behind it across the card, stamped directly onto this white piece, and then added one of my die-cut cats. And then most of these that I have left have like a sentiment going across the middle, either on a fishtail or just another strip, and then have like final dots or the little centers of the dots up here. Again, just different ways to use up those little strips. This one, I actually had some of that blue sky paper left, and so I added my spooky sentiment here and then added some little googly eyes. Make that one a little more fun. And then using up the last of my scraps here, I had some thin strips of the candy corn paper left, so I just fishtailed them and then cut them down so that they kind of stair-stepped diagonally up across the card. Used that pumpkin wishes and candy corn kisses again, and then I added 2 white brads down here at the bottom. I had, with all the strips that I had left, I grouped them together to see what size squares I could get, and I think these are 1.5 inches. And so I cut out as many of those as I could, and I pieced this one together kind of in a patchwork method, and then used a black pen to go in and add some faux stitching so that it looked like it was patchwork. And then these are the same size squares. I didn't have enough to do another full card, so I just did it where they go across the middle. And again, added the faux stitching and stamped directly onto my card front. These were thinner strips that I could get like 1-inch squares out of, and so I pieced them together to make a card front, and realized that since some of these were plain, like solid, almost a solid color, I wanted to give it a little bit more of a something. So I stamped little images in some of them. So here's like a simple spider web. Here's that pumpkin again, which I also stamped onto some smaller pattern paper pieces and layered that. The bats, I stamped the eek, and then the spider. And then the Happy Halloween, just a simple stamp sentiment that I fishtailed and then backed it on whatever black scraps I could find. Oh, and you couldn't see it very well in the last one because it was darker, but this hairy piece, I just kind of gave it the scary pumpkin face. Those were fun. And then again, I still had a whole bunch of strips left, so I just layered these up and stair-stepped them down in size, going, you know, the longest in the middle out to the shortest on the ends, and then anchored them together with this fishtail banner. And then my silhouette had a spider web doily. So I cut that out and then just put my Happy Halloween with the spider. Middle. Here's another version of that one. And then I still had a bunch of strips, and they were all the same paper. And so I decided that I could tie those together in a card. And so I just, you know, staggered them like every other one and spaced them out evenly across the card front to make my card mat. Tied them together again with this black cardstock strip, and then printed Toil and Trouble for my silhouette, and then matted that on orange. And then lastly, this is a sketch that I had shown earlier, and this time I had some of these circles left of this polka dot paper back here, and so I just put some of my black cats on there, and then a stamped, "Hope you have a very haunted Halloween." So, and I have used up strips, like a lot of my scraps on the inside of these cards. So all I really have to do is go in and stamp the insides, and then they are done. And I didn't have a whole lot of scraps left. Like I said, I got 135 Halloween cards, so that was pretty good. And good news, guys, and I thank you. I have hit 500 subscribers, and I can't thank you enough for all of your support. Like I said, you've held me accountable on my pad kill projects, and I love the encouragement and the tips that you all have given me. So as a little thank you, I have some gifts that I would like to share with someone. I have a small coffee themed stamp set, and then a Darice 5x7 embossing folder. So, and I will include a card from all of these that I've made. So in order to be part of this giveaway, it's US residents only, but to enter, be sure to like this video and be a subscriber, and then in the comments below, let me know which of these cards was your favorite, and then the winner will get one of their favorite cards, plus the stamp set and the embossing folder. So again, I can't thank you guys enough for everything. I mean, this has been fun. It's been a learning curve and an interesting journey for me. And I look forward to the future, and I hope everybody will stay with me and I can keep growing from that. But again, I thank you for your time today. I'm finishing up on the fall cards, so have a couple more project shares to go with this project and then can wrap it up. But thanks for your time today, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. See you next week.